Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is RandoGEEK. We're going to talk about a situation that seems to be a reoccurring one, specifically for Verizon, because we get a lot of these stories where Verizon is usually the victim of these types of situations. AT&T has had its fair share. T-Mobile occasionally, but I'd say it's mostly Verizon and AT&T, but largely Verizon being the victim of this situation. Now, here's a scenario where Verizon is trying to better coverage in a must-needed area, right? An area that can use the coverage. There's plenty of dead zones, and it would probably do the community a great deal of pleasure. It would bring a lot of good things to the community, like more people to travel, right? Because they'd have better coverage. Businesses would be able to operate quicker, more efficiently, and probably discover a world of options and services that they never knew they had because they didn't have good enough coverage. Hotels would probably attract more people. Overall, it's been proven that better coverage has been better for communities on average. However, there's a lot of small towns like what we're talking about here, residents that are not really into technology. They're not into large city people coming. They really just don't want it. They're afraid that better coverage might bring in bigger, more people, which they actually don't want, right? The residents don't care about the communities. They don't care if the businesses thrive unless they're little local business owners themselves. But if they're just residents, just have a small home there, maybe not even a homeowner, maybe just renting, but just want peace, quiet, don't want a lot of noise, don't want very large landscapes. They just want small little homes, beautiful scenic route, rural areas, free. Well, these are the types of customers we're talking about here, pushing back against Verizon and pretty much forcing their hand. So there's been a petition signed against Verizon. I think 140 residents. Keep in mind, these are small areas. So when 140 residents sign a petition, it's a great deal. It's recognized by property managers there and government, officials in the area because, again, these are small towns. There's not that many people there to begin with. And, here's what's going on. So Verizon proposed to build a cell tower in Washington's quiet village of New Preston. Apparently, local resistance has been made, published, right? There was a 140-foot tower planned for 17 Warren Road. The towers are being pushed by a Delaware-based joint venture between Vertical Bridge, REIT, and Cellco Partnership, which is, of course, operated by Verizon. However, more than 140 residents have signed a petition opposing the plan. They're arguing that the tower threatens the village's scenic view, so a lot of vanity here. Property values, they're saying that, I guess, because of the cell tower, it'll look ugly, and people won't want to move there. They won't want to buy homes. So if someone wanted to move out and sell their home, because of the 140-foot pole, they're saying that someone looking to move into a quiet little rural community like this, that it won't sell well, right? It'll decrease the value. Now, I don't think that's true, but to people that are not used to these towers, that are not used to this type of communications and technology, this is how they think. So, and then, of course, lastly, the community character, right? It just doesn't fit in with small homes, peace, quiet, scenic, beautiful trees and skies and mountains and hills and whatever else might be there. They just don't want it. In a nutshell, they just don't want it. And this is the same situation that we get all the time. Verizon now has to stand up for the rights to try to say, listen, you guys want better coverage, which they do. Right. There's many that are complaining that they do want the coverage, that there's too many dead spots with Verizon service. They want them to come out and build and make things better. However, they don't want this. So they're proposing that Verizon does smaller little builds on top of, I think, rooftops, etc. Something that Verizon's not going to be able to do. It's far more complicated. It probably will not work the way that it needs to. We know how these carriers build. They build these huge towers and they work, right? We do tests and we see that they're efficient. This is how it's done. In 2025, if you want better coverage, this is how it is. This is how things are done by the carriers. So we have a lot of this. They're saying that a rep for the tower said that if the plan is approved, the new cell tower construction could begin in 2026, either spring or early summer. There was a question about how the proposed cell tower might affect local property values. They said straight up, they were like, well, opinions differ, with arguments supporting both positive and negative outcomes. And, Kenneth Baldwin is a representative of the towers. And he says, anecdotally, there are folks that will say, I'm not going to buy a house. It's adjacent to a parcel that has a cell tower. I was involved in a tower application in he says, New Canaan, a number of years ago, where people came to the hearing and said, if I had known that there was no cell phone service, I've just purchased my home, I wouldn't have bought the home in the first place. Yeah. So, you know what I mean? Like this person here, he's saying that he had the incident where they were upset that there was no cell phone service. So, you got one half of people that are going to say it looks ugly, the other half of people that are, going to complain if there's not enough coverage. So what is Verizon supposed to do? Right? Yeah, it's a tough one here. But just bringing this to your attention, that's really the discussion here. But it's a classic case where we just kind of keep hearing the same thing. People want the coverage. They don't want the carriers to come out and build. Vanity reasons. And I get it. Maybe it's not the most appropriate thing. Maybe if you're someone that really appreciates the beauty of a blue sky and trees and nature, I get it. It doesn't really fit. But, unfortunately, things are changing. Communities are changing worldwide, right? Every small rural town is starting to see a little bit of big city. Some big cities are starting to see a little bit of small town. It's probably not going to last, right? Things may go back to its former self at some point when things, it's a lot of confusion going on. People not really sure where they belong, where they don't belong. But technology is here to stay. That's one thing that's not really changing. And I think that if we don't allow the carriers to continue to build, they're not going to. And then there's going to be that problem again where coverage is just weak, and then people will not be able to take advantage of what they need to take advantage of. A lot of people, even in these small towns, they are very much dependent on internet because they're further away from people, because they're not so connected to large cities. The internet is what kind of helps them get a lot of the things they need, like order from Amazon, like order from their supermarkets, like order food, right, from delivery services. These are types of services that they rely heavily on. Now, if there's no coverage, if they don't have good service, how are they going to do this? So I think that they need to stop pushing back so much, allow companies to come in and build, and just kind of deal with it. I mean, if there's a large tower in one part of your town, just don't look at the tower. You don't have to visit that part of town, or you can just say, here, there's that ugly tower, and move on with your day. Enjoy the rest of your beautiful scenic routes. You know what I mean? So I don't know. A lot of it is just kind of nonsense in my opinion, but we'll see. We'll see if Verizon gets the go ahead. I think they probably will, because it's better for the community in the long run. The community is going to benefit greater than the 140 residents that complain about it. The businesses will thrive, restaurants, hospitals, libraries, hotels, schools, but we'll see. As always, thank you so much for stopping by and watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.